Hi, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. I am also the author of Humanity's Inflection Point and From Whence Cometh Intelligence. My upcoming book will tie a lot more together. Information that I am bringing to you because this information is for the entire world. The information I give you today will basically enable you to debate anyone. It does not matter what their level of intelligence or education or anything else. When it comes to the origins of life, you now have the material to debate anyone and solid information based on our current day science. The revelations that led me down this path, you can look throughout the series, and one of the really important ones, now you can Google it, the Life's Logic module, but the information I'm bringing today is again related to that, but I want it to be focused on one piece that debunks all the stuff about time and random and nature and all these things. Whenever you hear this stuff, you can pick it up, because debate with anyone with this information. All life's activities are directly related to sensory information. Let me repeat that. All life's activities are directly related to sensory information. So any discussion about the creation of life must involve the development and implementation of the sensory system. And this is where, again, this is the critical information you must remember to debate anyone. So all of life activities are tied to sensory information, which means that we have to have sensors that detect information the way you feel now. Even our emotional states are influenced by sensors. Yes, because we see, we hear, and that influences even our emotions, the things we want. And we say, this will make me happy, or this makes me sad. It's because of sensory information. We see, we hear, we feel certain things. Again, so it's all sensory. And so this is why we must understand, in order to develop a sensor, which is what light sensors enable us to see. Pressure sensors allow us to hear, sound, taste, feeling, even things like pH, right, which happens throughout our bodies and around us. All of these things require sensors. So without sensors, you're either in a coma or you're dead. Sensors. Throughout us, we are filled with sensors. And there are 3 prerequisites. Debate this with anyone. There are 3 prerequisites to building a sensor. Number 1, and it's in no order, but one of the prerequisites is, in order to build a sensor, and it does not matter whether it's for pressure, light, temperature, pH, anything. In order to build a sensor, we must have a thorough understanding of that which the sensor will detect. So if you want to build a light sensor, you have to have an understanding of light. If you want to build a pressure sensor, you have to know what pressure is. Temperature, taste, smell, pH. You must have an understanding of the thing you will detect with that sensor. Okay, so that's one prerequisite. Without that, this thing about life spontaneous and random and all this nonsense, well, without sensor, life it's basically like a piece of metal or piece of something inanimate. So in order to have a sensor, you must be able to understand that which the sensor will detect. The next prerequisite is you must find a material that responds to the stimuli in a predictable way. Like, I'm sure most of us are familiar with when we use mercury to measure temperature, or we even had, alcohol thermometers, because they expanded by a certain amount. They behave predictably as the temperature rose and fell. So we could put them in a tube and we say, when it's at this level, this is your temperature. When it's at this level, so these are the things I'm talking about. You must find a material. If you want to build a light sensor, you have to find a material that responds to light in a predictable way. Pressure, pH, again, temperature, all of these things. To build a sensor, you must understand the stimuli, then you must find a material that responds predictably to that stimuli. And the third prerequisite is the sensor must be wired to a response system. What does that mean? Think about your hand and something hot or cold, but something that gets against your skin. And the sensors in your skin will detect it. The sensors will cause the movement to or away from that thing if it's unpleasant, but the sensor does not move it. The information from that sensor has to be processed, and in our case, we know it goes through the nerves, and then the nerves, it goes either to the brain or some processing center, and then that tells the muscle to move away from that. So the sensor does not respond, it detects. The information from the sensor has to be processed, and then something has to make a decision what to do about it. It's like you smell something bad. Well, that doesn't move your hand to say cover your nose, or the sound is too loud. It doesn't move your hand to your ear. The sensor detects. It has to be wired to a system that will process and make and respond. It's the same with our machines. You think about a GPS sensor, right? It gets the information. The GPS sensor gets the information about location and you have where you want to go. The sensor does not move you there. It has to send it, has to be processed, and then something else has to take action. Within us, you have a plant, you change the direction of the light. The sensor detects that the light is coming from a different direction. Something has to now process that and decide what action should it take so that the plant could start growing in a certain way to turn to face the light. So the sensor must be wired to a response system. So let me go over again. The 3 prerequisites. You must understand the stimuli. You must be able to find material that responds predictably to that stimuli. And third, the sensor must be wired to a response system. Now, how could this all spontaneously happen? Remember, almost everything in life has a range of sensors. So we have sensors being developed for sight, for feeling, for humidity, for temperature. All kinds of sensors have been developed before life or simultaneously with life. How does this happen out of chemistry turning into biology? Where did the sensors come from? See, sensors require intelligence. To build any sensor, it requires advanced, sophisticated intelligence. And so and again, the sensors can't be added afterwards, right? Because it's all integrated in the sensory system. So you can't put in one sensor, let me put in the sight sensor. This is not a machine. Then we're going to kill the whole species and add another sensor? No. So we see, even people think about, suddenly even unicellular, right? They have to eat, they have to know by sensors whether to move to something or away from, right? So that sensory information is embedded. So it had to be there at the very creation of life. And if you go into, now, like I said, now you can Google the Life Logic module, the ESIS. It will show you how this accounts for everything, including things that the current theory can't, just as well nature. And I'll touch on nature a little bit here again. Nature apparently is this thing that exists outside of everything, right? Because it can be in a spider if it's changing a tree and a bird and a fish. So it's on the outside. And it somehow tells a bear it is time to start eating, because in a few more days or weeks, you need to go sleep for 5 months. Nature being outside. This is, now if you, or when you, right, you use this information about sensors to debate anyone, they may start saying nature, 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 or time, time, over time, nature, over time, nature, over time. You can't debate that. You can't. You just can't. Right? But when you show, this is modern information. Since we started doing robotics and AI, this makes sense in the 21st century. This information was not available in the 19th century when they came up with this thing, well, we don't understand. And you will find, unfortunately, many people today don't understand logic. They say it's logical, but if you bring logic to them, they go back to nature, time, nature, nature, nature over time, nature over time. And he says, well, let's talk about the sensory, because here are some facts that we know in the 21st century. Charles Darwin did great work to reveal truth, but the people who came up with this theory of evolution and all this stuff, they didn't understand logic, that it's something that you can embed in something and logic controls behavior. And in order to do that, you need sensors. This information is new. You have it. You are now empowered to debate anyone. And eventually I will too. I'll be everywhere debating this, because it is irrefutable. No one can disprove the facts that you have these 3 prerequisites of building any sensor, and as such, sensors could never occur spontaneously, because again, you need to understand the stimuli, you need to find material, and then you have to wire it to those sensors that you built based on your knowledge and your understanding and ability to find materials. You now have to wire it to a response system. Okay, so this whole thing, once this becomes known, and you can be instrumental in this, you have the information. It came through me, and I was blessed, but it's not for me. It's for all of us to change things, to recognize, the world will recognize that this whole theory of life has to be updated, because we know better now, and it's time that we revisit this. And so this is why I came with this, try to focus just on the sensory part, so that we can debate and refute all these allegations of nature and time and over time, and because none of that accounts for the fact that every life activity is based on sensory information. Like I said, even our emotions, sensory information. So any theory of life must include information about the development and implementation of the sensory system. So again, I want to take thank you for taking the time. And again, it's no coincidence that you ran into this. It's a series of decisions that you made over time that led you down this path, so that you can also be an instrument. Long after I'm gone, this will be the information that we will use to show the whole world. All these academics who say time and nature, we'll fix that, and you can be instrumental in it. So I want to thank you for taking the time, and until next time, may God continue to bless us all. Thank you.